WOVU LP, Cleveland.
This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Grand dawning, great rising, Cleveland, Ohio. Vince Robinson here with another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest today is none other than Mr. Tawayne McGee. I've known Tawayne for a while. I've watched this young man grow from a kind of like a pup into, he's approaching, I would just say you man. You're a man now. You said you're 26, right?
Yes, I am 26.
Okay, so the age is out there. You have no reason to conceal that, though, being where you are. When you get a little bit longer in the tooth, like me, you might have reservations about letting everybody know how old you are. But you're at a good age. I've known you for a while. I've kind of watched you grow and mature, and I noticed last year, or within this year, where you were actually running for Cleveland City Council, so I wasn't able to do the interview with you due to the equal time constraints that the FCC has. But since you're no longer running, we can have this conversation, so I'm glad to have you aboard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to get to know Tawayne McGee, give you an opportunity to tell your life story. So first of all, native Clevelander?
Yes, born and raised.
Born and raised, represent your hood.
Well, I grew up in the Glenville and Colorado community, so Lower St. Clair area.
Okay, Tar Blooder?
Get Academy graduate, so Dolphin.
Okay.
But it still connects to the Tar Blooder Nation, yes.
Okay, did you play football?
Not in high school, no. Maybe when I was in Little League, but it really wasn't in my backing, so.
Okay, how could you go to Ginn Academy and not play football?
Well, everybody who does go to Ginn, football is not made for everybody. I was more of an academic scholar, but I was a bit of a class clown. I must say that at the time. I was kind of popular with that, but still on top of my academics at the time.
You say was a clown.
Oh. I must say I still have a heart of sense of humor still in me. So, yeah, so thank you for that reminder.
Well, I can just remember one of the first times you came through here, we had an open mic session. We may have had a feature that day, but you decided that you wanted to try some comedy.
Yes. At that time, this was around, I believe, 2016, 2017, yes. I was an aspiring comedian at the time, an actor. But then when I started to get into the political world, I had to make a decision whether I wanted to continue with my entertainment career or pursue my political career. And I chose to put my comedian career on the back burner and chose public service.
Okay. So you said when you were going to school, you were a scholar. What were you versed in?
Well, with Ginn Academy being so far the only public all-boys high school within the greater Cleveland area, they're based on all academics. But at that time, I was really into history. History was really my best thing. But when I went to college, music was my thing. So I went to Tri-C for audio production, what they call the RAT program, Recording Arts and Technology.
Recording Arts and Technology.
Yes.
Okay. So you decided that you were going to put the entertainment piece on the back burner and focus on politics. Why politics?
Well, because one, I knew I wanted to help people, but I also knew that with getting inside the entertainment industry, it would have been kind of slim to none, really. I love entertainment. Entertainment was my number one love and kind of still is a little bit, but I could have more of a helping hand within the public service area. So I pursued a political career.
Okay. So you mentioned that you grew up in Collinwood, Glenville area, but when you ran on in another part of town. Why did you select that area?
Because I live in Ward 12. I've been a resident in Ward 12 on the west side part for about 4 to 5 years. And for me, at that time when I first started getting into the political picture, knowing where I lived at that time and still do now, I said to myself, well, you know what? I wouldn't want to go back to Glenville, and one thing about it, though, their current representation has been there for years. And I knew that with me being a fresh new face, running against the current incumbent, that would have been a huge, huge defeat. So, with that said, I still suffered a defeat today while running for councilman, but it wouldn't have been as, I'm going to say, this one wouldn't have been as hard as if I would have ran in Glenville.
Okay. So what did you learn going through that process of running in Ward 12?
Well, thanks to gerrymandering, it goes from east to west, Ward 12 does. With Slavic Village now being predominantly African American, but it's a low voter percentage within the Slavic Village area. So with campaigning through there, being a fresh new face and all, I know I didn't want to step up to people like a politician, because one thing about me is that I'm definitely not a politician. But then it also goes to the west side too, Slavic Village, east, Old Brooklyn, Tremont, and well, it's
You've probably been through it so many times.
Yeah, I learned a lot with running for city council. It was kind of learning from the process. I learned a lot, really, and for me to look back on it, it is very touching, really. So it hits me home in the heart, really. So it hits me hard in the mind. So.
Yeah. And I would have to assume that that's a fairly diverse ward. How were you received by the residents of the ward that you were approaching about your aspirations?
Well, with me being a fresh new face at the time, some people like me, and they wanted to get to know me on a professional side. They said, what positions have you held before? And I said, I'm currently elected as a precinct committee person since May of 2018. Not too many people know who the precinct committee person is, so I have to educate them on that and let them know that beyond that, you also have, people know statewide elections, Ohio governor, the U.S. Senate, but local elections, local too, mayor's races, city council races, and also precinct committee races. Precinct committee races, Democrats take place every governor's race. Republicans takes place every presidential race. Those are when the elections for precinct committee happens in the U.S.
Okay. And tell the folks out there that are listening and watching, what is a precinct committee?
A precinct committee person is, if you get elected like everybody else, you get a petition, you collect signatures, 5 to 15 signatures of the precinct that you live in. So I live in Ward 12. I would live in Precinct A. Precinct A is near the border between Old Brooklyn and the Newburgh Heights area. But it's also where the wildlife where the Cleveland Zoo is. So if you live in that area, Precinct A will most likely be a precinct. And what they do is that you present them knowledge of the elections that take place, which is every year. Most of the people just notice when it's the presidential races or the U.S. Senate races or the governor's races too. But it's not an election every 2 years, every 4 years. It's an election every year. It's an election every year, and I'd like to inform people on that. Also, I would like to also make sure that people's voter registration is updated, because you never know who's going to move in or who's going to move out. And when you actually introduce yourself to people, not everybody is going to know who you are. And when you gladly put yourself out there, especially positive energy, you'll get positive feedback.
So with that role, and you being in Ward 12, you were precinct committeeman there, and then you decided to run against the incumbent?
Yes, for a city councilman. I took the experience as precinct committee person, even though I have to admit everything that a council person does is not everything that a precinct committee person does. Precinct committee is more hands-on. Council is based on what I've learned is, you write legislation, you manage budgets too, but based on listening to the people, not stepping to people like a politician. People say, the councilmen, they're never in the area, they're never around. We need to see these local politicians. They need to be more seen in the neighborhood. And for me, I felt like that's what I wanted to add as a candidate, and possibly, if elected, as a council person, to be more seen in the neighborhood and not just come out when the cameras are on or a photo op. Bring back more hands-on experience.
Okay. So it sounds like you really do have intentionality about being a public servant.
Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Coming from a long family history of public servants, starting with my great-great-uncle Virgil E. Brown Sr., who was a former county commissioner, Ohio Lottery director, and former Cleveland City Councilman too. But he has a long resume. For me, just starting out, I can try to compare myself to my Uncle Virgil, but I still have a long way to go.
That's really interesting, Tawayne. Many may not know this about me, but I was a radio news reporter here in Cleveland during the 80s. And I've interviewed your uncle a few times.
Oh, wow.
As a matter of fact, I have a photograph somewhere in my house of me with a microphone in his face and his wife standing right next to him. As a matter of fact, I believe your uncle used to live in Bracknell, didn't he?
Well, when I was a little kid, I know he resided or retired from public service in Cleveland Heights. But the Bracknell part, well, you kind of just surprised me with that, possibly. But my cousin Virgil Jr. currently now manages the insurance company that my Uncle Virgil started back when he first started in public service.
Yes, the office was located on Noble Road in Cleveland Heights,
yes.
Border of East Cleveland, Cleveland Heights.
Yes, and I believe before then it was on 105 in the Glenville neighborhood, because I believe that's where he used to be a councilman back then. But y'all had a lot of council people, a lot more back then than it is now, really. But yeah, I figured that's how large the city of Cleveland was, with the mass of people that lived in Cleveland back then.
Okay, very interesting. So it seems like politics might be in your DNA.
Possibly, yeah. I just kind of stumbled into it, really. When the RNC came to Cleveland in 2016, I could just easily sit back and talk about things, or I can actually get up and do something about it. So, leading to actions from there, all the way to where I am now, and hopefully still continuing with a great process of public service.
Okay, so I know that he was a Republican.
Yes, my Uncle Virgil and my cousin Virgil Jr. are both Republicans.
Okay, but is it safe to assume that you ran as a Democrat?
Yes, and based on studies coming from the city of Cleveland, which is mostly a Democratic city, based on studies, really, I have a lot of colleagues who are Republicans and ran on the Republican ticket, and it seems like when it comes to them, it doesn't really work out on their side, really. But since now, with me no longer running for council and not pursuing a second term within precinct committee, I'm now a nonpartisan political activist, which means that I am not bound to a political party. It's the candidate and the issues that I look forward to.
Yeah.
And one thing about growing up in the city of Cleveland, or even just in politics, when people tell you to vote straight party, straight down, that right there is, and me as a voter, as a citizen, that is something that I will not do. I will vote for a candidate that best represents the people, that best has resources for the people. It's not party. Okay. It's the people. Party before people.
Okay. I couldn't agree with you more, brother. As a matter of fact, I voted for your uncle, even though he was Republican. I didn't identify as Republican, but I voted for him. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is Tawayne McGee. He is a former candidate for Cleveland City Council, and he just informed me now that he's nonpartisan and still a public servant. We'll be right back with more after this.
Wow, I wish there was a way I could listen to WOVU when I wasn't in the city. But there is.
Really?
Yes. You can go to WOVU.org. Go to our webpage. It's got everything on all the shows.
Eric Nolan is in the building.
This is Rachel Hill, the host of Her in the Huddle.
This is Delvis Valentine.
All listed.
Yo, what it do is your girl DJ Coco Z.
Hey, I am Talitha Kube from Let's Talk About It.
Hi, this is DJ Black Unicorn.
WOVU.org. Tap that app. Listen live.
This is WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest today is Tawayne McGee. I have to tell you, I've learned some interesting things about him in the past few moments that have literally blown me away. In the last segment, we were talking politics, and one of the things that I was thinking about was the notion of being a public servant and how some of the folks who are in political office seem to be, and this is just opinion on my part, but it seems to be that they're serving themselves more than they are the people. And it seems as though you might have a similar perspective and want to offer your ability to change that paradigm in terms of what you do as a public servant.
Yes. I can say many things, but me as a person, I can sit on my couch and complain about how things are not being done. And this is for anybody else. So, but the one thing you can do, I'm going to say this after a famous former elected president of the United States of America. If you're disappointed with your elected official, do something about it. Get a petition, collect signatures, and run for public office yourself. And that way, you can show the people and possibly show the current elected official how the job is truly supposed to be done.
Within the past year or so, there was an effort to reduce the size of council. Someone was kind of jaded with something that they wanted to happen. It didn't happen, and the result of it was, well, let's take a few folks out of office. You mentioned that there are a lot of city councilmen. Do you think we need more or less?
Well, I remember you did mention that, and I remember I was hearing stories about that. I believe that was happening a little bit before the pandemic actually happened. But now, of the 2020 census, Cleveland is now, with 17 wards being actively now in the city of Cleveland. Each ward represents from 20,000 to 25,000 people. Since the 2020 census has been done, we're going to shrink down from 17 to 15 wards based on the stories and the newsletters that I've come across that came my eye. So I'm not sure when that relining is going to take place, but possibly within the next couple of years. And I am possibly looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with the redistricting. I know me as a citizen, I definitely am. To see what council people might run against each other at that time, to see who's trying to keep their seats, or maybe council people just might retire from it all in all and look for a new career within public service.
So you're speaking of the eventuality of 15 instead of 17. How do you think citizens would be affected by that?
Oh, wow. Yes. I mean, citizens will strongly be affected by it, because even for me, if I were to have this good state rep or good council person, and then it shrinks down, and then obviously they're going to have to run against another state rep or council person for that new marked territory. That's going to be like the battle of blows, really, because you're going to whether vote for this person or vote for that person. So it's going to be pretty rough, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's how it affects the council person, but my question is, how does it affect the residents?
Oh, wow. With the residents, they might not know who their next state rep is going to be with that process, too. Especially like if you live in a ward and then that line, redistricts from your street, and then you could be in another ward and might not even know what ward that is, really, or that council person. So that could really extremely affect the living process, really.
I have been associated with a few different council people, so I know a little bit about how it works. And one of the things that I've heard And one of the frustrations of council people actually is the things that end up on their desk that are not councilman or councilwoman duties. You know, when things go wrong in the ward, sometimes the first person that hears about it is a councilman, and so those problems end up on their desk. Mm-hmm. So what I've been told is that having more constituents means more responsibility, and it kind of hinders your ability to serve. So when you reduce the size of council, you're also going to reduce your ability to serve effectively. So, you know, I heard about the movement to reduce council. I heard arguments on both sides. Just looking at where the motivation to do that came from, I'm not quite sure if it was the right thing to do. It didn't happen, but I know that when it did happen, there was a huge outcry. I can recall attending a meeting at a church over on Kinsman where there were several council people there, including the council president, the incoming council president, and a number of his colleagues, and they were rather spirited about it. But I'm not quite sure if reducing the size of council would be the move. I think, you know, and again, a lot of times people say we need less government, we need less bureaucracy, but we actually need more in certain cases, and I'll give you a case in point. The city of Cleveland has not had an effective Bureau of Arts and Culture for a number of years. As an individual artist, I have been involved in an effort to, secure support from the city of Cleveland, and I was really astounded to find out that there is no direct support for artists living in the city of Cleveland, but artists in the city have a tremendous economic impact, and their needs and concerns need to be addressed, and bureaucracy is one of the ways to do that. So I know that's kind of a tangent, but I just wanted to throw that in there. Do you think, looking at the possibility of becoming a public servant, would there ever be a point in time when that paradigm shift comes to it's a great job, I'm happy to collect the pay, but I don't know if I want to do as much work as required?
Well, looking at the insights, if I were elected as a Cleveland City Council person, and based on studies, Cleveland City Council people, they get paid a very huge amount of money based on salary. So for me, I would definitely put in more work than what I get paid, what I would have got paid for. Definitely, because we as public service, no matter if you're elected or not, but especially if you're elected, you get elected by the people, in which you should work for the people. That's what I believe.
Okay, great answer. You know, they also proposed that the salaries of council people be reduced.
Yes.
So you want to increase their span of influence or responsibility, so forth, but you also want to reduce what they're paid in terms of their compensation. And effective council people, effective, I'll say that again, effective council people, they deserve every cent that they get. So, and I'm glad you mentioned the role of a council person is to write legislation, to draft laws that are a benefit to constituents. You know, we've seen a lot of things happen in council. I can remember when I first started covering city council back in the 80s. I'm not sure, don't quote me on it. It's been such a long time, but almost 40 years ago. But I think there were 33 members of council. And then I think it got reduced to 21. And then it got reduced to 17, and now here we are looking at 15 members of council. Quite interesting. What are your thoughts about the incoming administration? We have a relatively young mayor, not much older than you are, and we're going to have a new Cleveland City Council president. And you know, in relation to some of his colleagues, he's younger, not that young, but he's younger than some of them who have been on there for a long time. And then we've seen some, I'm not going to say any names, but we've seen some that have just kind of been excused from office with their names on buildings in Cleveland.
No. Well, you know, I do look forward to 2022 with the The mayor's election within this past year has been very exciting, along with me at that time running for president. I'll maybe someday possibly, but as a city council person. But I really look forward to what the new council president and the new mayor elect is going to do, and also the new Cleveland City Council members, the ones who got reelected and the ones who got newly elected. And then leading into 2022, which leads to our Ohio governor's race and also the U.S. Senator races. With U.S. Senator Rob Portman not running for re-election, that's an open call, or open seat for that one. And I have a lot of Democratic friends and also a lot of Republican friends running for that seat, also for the governor's race too. So I look forward to hearing what they have to say and bringing to the table their ideas.
One of the primary things that folks in public office have to do is they have to cultivate campaign funds.
Yes.
Some say that it is the majority of their work. That's what some say.
I'm going to say, as a first-time candidate for city council, money is definitely a need running for a campaign. I'm going to say, with me at that time being a fresh new face running for city council, money was a bit of a conflict, but I still ran my race. I've seen candidates who don't have as much fame or name recognition, money, coming in as the underdogs, and they win races. And I've seen people with the most amount of money and the most name recognition still lose races, and also vice versa, win races too. So, to me, money is a factor. It's a huge factor, but also it's what you also bring to the table. What you bring to the table. When I was connecting with the people, I door knocked with some of the members of the team I had, and I didn't want to stick to people like a politician. I wanted to come to them as a person, as a regular person, as a voter, and I asked them, what is it that could be done in the neighborhood that is currently not being done? And they love the fact that I got them involved as a part of the process of the decision making, because I feel that the people deserve to be a part of the decision making. It's not always the politician that should be making the decisions. It's the people that elect you that should help you make those decisions too. And me as a person, if I vote for you as a council candidate or presidential candidate or even a congressional candidate, you as my congressperson, you as my council person, call me and ask me what needs to be done from the local level. While you go to the city hall or DC, you work for me, you work for the people, get the people involved.
What do you say to those who are completely disconnected and have no interest in participating through votes or attending precinct committee meetings or whatever? What do you say to them to engage them?
Well, I'd say, I was once in your shoes. I was once the guy that once said, complained about how things are not being done. But then I connected with the precinct committee person. I connected with the council person, and I got involved as an activist starting out. Then I would kind of see okay, I'm not really satisfied with the elective person's process. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to run for public office myself. Complaining will get me nowhere, but action will provide me what a percentage that where I want to go to, the direction that I want to go to. And even if I don't win, even if you don't win, at least you can say you tried. And with that name recognition, hey, you might run for a more higher office, say, very possible.
Okay. We're getting an education in politics and the political process from Mr. Tawayne McGee here. We're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. Back in a minute.
Since 1997, St. Luke's Foundation has awarded millions of dollars each year to positive, impactful organizations that serve you and your community. And now it's time to put the money where your mouth is. So we're introducing Lift Every Voice, a platform created to hear directly from you. We want to know what's important to you and what's important for your community, so St. Luke's Foundation can put all these millions in all the right places. And sharing your voice is easy to do. Go to lev216.org and sign up for the Lift Every Voice email and text updates. It's completely anonymous and totally free, and your voice will impact where, why, and how St. Luke's Foundation spreads that monetary love. Head over to lev216.org and sign up now to help lift every voice in our community. This message is brought to you by St. Luke's Foundation and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Hi, this is Ken Hawkins.
Hi, this is Pinky.
This is T.C. Lewis.
This is Shantae Chappers.
This is Reggie Hayman.
This is Bill Silverby Richards. If you're not listening to WOVU 95.9 FM, you're not in the mix. I'm Silverby, crank it up.
24 hours of golden.
This is Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. I'm speaking with Tawayne McGee, who is educating me on politics and the political process. You know, one of the things that I've learned about council races in particular is that one of the benefits of being a councilman is serving a relatively small constituency. When you run for mayor, you have to consider both sides of the city. Cleveland is a fairly polarized city, so I can imagine you running for council in a ward that you did presented a challenge just because of the racial composition of that ward. I'm just curious about how one would manage appealing to folks who may not look like you, who may identify with the incumbent or, you know, someone of a different hue. How do you win folks like that over?
Well, you know, my thing is just engaging in conversation with them, really, presenting your character, presenting yourself, and the way how you present yourself. Perhaps they might be fond of you or they might not be fond of you, but it's the first impression. First impressions are what really count. And for the current council person that's been there for 16 years, you know that person, you're comfortable with that person. And then you have those who say, oh, man, I'm getting sick of it. You know, we need new blood. We need new people. I say, sure, yes, I'm happy to hear what you have to say. Because that's one thing about it. I'm not stepping to you like a politician. I'm stepping to you like a public servant. Because once again, we get elected by you in which we should work for you. That's the way I feel.
Okay. We're going to step away from politics a little bit and talk more about Mr. Tawayne McGee. Okay, so at the top of the show, we talked about your interest in history. We talked about your interest in entertainment. You said that you went to Tri-C and you were involved in music recording. Perhaps politics works out, perhaps not. What other possibilities do you see for yourself?
Wow, that's it's always nice to have a plan B, really. And entertainment was my one, and then I stumbled into politics, so I guess politics was my plan B. But now with it being my plan A, I'm still trying to figure out what my plan B is. Well, what if I'm no longer trying to be involved in the public service at the time?
You still trying to figure it out?
Yes, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Okay. All right. I was also curious about your interest in history. What do you think that came from?
Growing up in a predominantly African American neighborhood, in the Glenville neighborhood, really, I just, been very fascinated with history, really, and I will always like to crack open a history book whenever I went to the library. That was always my favorite. No matter if you're reading about JFK or MLK or reading about, the Underground Railroad or, even the things that happened way beyond that, like the 1800s or the 1700s or AD, or just wonderful. I've always been interested in history, really. So, if possibly that might be my plan B, to possibly get a history degree and possibly, do something with that.
So perhaps teaching.
I never really looked at that, but possibly, really.
Well, yeah, that would either be being a teacher or writing a book or something like that.
The writing part I looked forward to. The teaching part, that was really unexpected, though. But writing, yes, literacy, I really do like to write, as well as that, too. Writing is a big thing. I love to do creative writing, or even just, picking up a notepad and just writing something. Writing is great. Writing is fun. I love to write.
Could you describe your experience in the Cleveland public school system? I mean, you went to Gann Academy. That was one of the schools. You went to others. You also mentioned going to libraries, which I find fascinating. I mean, when I was young, that was one of my favorite things to do. I mean, I'd go to the library, be there all day, check out books, take them home, and I can recall my parents bought 2 sets of encyclopedias for me. Uh-huh. There was a encyclopedia set called the Golden Book of Knowledge, and each book had a different colored spine, so it was a very colorful collection of books. I can remember some of the specific colors. There was a fuchsia color, and there was this purple color, and the red and the blue and all of that. But I read those books voraciously, and I think that I know a lot of what I know now because I was really transfixed with books. Where did your appreciation for books come from?
With one thing about it, attending library class when I was in elementary school, and my librarian teacher would just like to read books to us. I remember Charlotte's Web, that's one of my favorites. And then as I got older, in high school, I started reading Sharon Draper, who's an author from Cleveland. I started reading her books, and then going on to Harry Potter, as well as that too. Now Harry Potter will be something that I will probably read back in elementary school, but let's just say I was a late bloomer when it comes to that one. But just being around books and, people actually presenting the words from the page out like in 3D towards, at that time, a little child just as like me. Just reading is fun, and I love reading. Reading is great.
So in terms of history, you mentioned American history. Were you looking at any other subjects in terms of history, like maybe European history or African history or world history of some nature, or were you just primarily focused on American history?
Well, as I get older, all the different histories as you name them always popped out to me. But I know I wanted to do studies based on my culture of African history and also world history, because the whole world has history all around us. So world history, definitely African history as well.
Okay. So what can you tell me of what you know of African history? Africa is one of my favorite places.
Well, you've been on this earth longer than me, Mr. Min, so I'm going to say, based on what I've been taught, our ancestry of Africa, and sort of just going back in my memory bank here, sort of things that we was taught based on certain foods that we brought over to America from our culture from back then. Fufu, for example. I've eaten fufu only once in my life, but it's very great. This was that to try to Americanize it with hot sauce, but it didn't come out right. And then I believe you have banku, which I believe is Nigerian dish, I believe. And then, but I love food. So the food definitely comes to me. But also other things too. The sense of clothing, what materials based on clothing. Dashiki. I believe so. I only wore the dashiki once, but I would love to have that experience again. And definitely a whole lot of things that jumping in through my head. But, yeah.
It's interesting as I sit here and have this conversation with you and have been to Africa a few times. If you were over there, you would blend right in. They wouldn't know that you were from America until you opened your mouth. Particularly if you went to a place like Ghana or Nigeria. And there are probably other countries on the continent as well. But yeah, I just find that interesting. In terms of the fufu, I think I may have had it once. And I was having dinner with Chief Aduakwa at his his palace in East Legon, and he has servants. And one day I was there, and I was outside of the house where one of the people who were there was actually making it. They take cassava and they put it in this bowl, and then they have this tool that they use, and they just pound it, and they pound it into a paste, and somehow they cook it or whatever they do to it. But I would have to sit there at the dinner table and watch Nana Duokwa dip it, and it would be like a bowl or something. And I think it was like a chicken-based sauce or something like that, which would have excluded me because of me being vegan. But it just looked like he was getting so much joy from it. And I haven't had the joy of fufu yet. And based on the way things are right now, I may not be going to Ghana anytime soon. But that's a whole nother story. I mean, they're restricting travel to a lot of places, and they have different restrictions and protocols that have to be enforced, and so we're in a different place right now when it comes to world traveling. I hate to say that I'm really sad about that. 2019, I went to Africa twice. I spent 5 weeks there, 2.5 weeks in Ghana, and then I spent 2 weeks in Egypt and another week in the Sudan, and then I came home and was here for a week and a half and went to the Dominican Republic and spent a week, and then 2020 came, and March 30th, I was supposed to board a flight to Accra, Ghana, and my flight got canceled, and I was not able to go. I haven't been back since, but who knows? Some point I look forward to going back to the continent, but it doesn't appear that it's going to be anytime soon. Yes. But I think it's really important for us to take a good view of history. And when you speak of Africa, they are in ways in the same position that we are here, because they haven't been fully informed of history, nor have we. When I was in school, we didn't learn very much about Africa at all, nor did we learn very much about black people in America. So I'm wondering, since you are closer to your time in school than I am, if you can recall what you learned about Africa and African American history.
Well, of course, when it comes to America, they bring up Black History Month in February, and within that month, growing up in the Cleveland public schools, they'll do a month of Black History Month, and you do type in reports of who you look up to when it comes to Black History Month. People say Dr. King, Malcolm X, Aretha Franklin, God bless her soul, and a lot of great other people, and even JFK, even though with him being not African American, but he did a lot to possibly help out the African American race at the time. But that's what I grew up in, and also just reading books from what the local school districts did not bring to us as students. Going to the library, reading books from W.E.B. Du Bois and the other civil rights, Black history leaders.
Well, you got folks like A. Philip Randolph, Paul Robeson, Fannie Lou Hamer, and others.
Yes. And it's easy to bring up. You bring up. Of course, they're already telling God bless your soul as well. But you name names that that are not brought up in everyday conversations. Really, Dr. King and Malcolm X, but the ones you said, they're not brought up in everyday conversations.
Well, I kind of wonder about even if Cleveland names are brought up. There's a restaurant on Kinsman or near Kinsman called Annie P's Black Wall Street Cafe, and they have pictures of various, famous people in the black community, and among them are Lewis and Carl B. Stokes, and I've spoken to children in that restaurant who didn't know who Lewis and Carl B. Stokes were. Tragic.
Yes, very tragic.
Fact of life. We're going to have more conversation with Tawayne McGee when we return. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU, Bird Bell Car Community Radio Station. back after this.
Wow, I wish there was a way I could listen to WOVU when I wasn't in the city.
But there is.
Really?
Yes. You can go to WOVU.org. Go to our webpage. It's got everything on all the shows.
Eric Nolan is in the building.
This is Rachel Hill, the host of Her in the Huddle.
This is Delvis Valentine.
All listed.
Yo, what it do with your girl DJ Coco Z?
Hey, I am Talitha Kube from Let's Talk About It.
Hi, this is DJ Black Unicorn.
WOVU.org. Tap the app. Listen live.
This is WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
This is 95.9 FM, WOVU, a Burton Bell Carr Community Radio station. Now back to Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Round the third and heading home on Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest today is Tawayne McGee. We talked extensively about his political insight and knowledge. We talked about his knowledge of history. We talked about his involvement in entertainment or lack of involvement. And we talked about him working towards finding a plan B. Maybe I can help you with that. One of the things that I see as being important in life, probably one of the most important things in life, is to be aware of one's purpose. Have you ever had a conversation with yourself about what your purpose is?
Yes, especially me being so young. And I still have that conversation with myself. What is my purpose? Because one, public service might not be my complete plan for the rest of my life. So I would like to know what my secondary purpose is, really. And in some ways, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Okay. Do you have a decent assessment of what your skills and talents are? Because sometimes those skills and talents are a direct reflection of what your purpose is.
Well, you know what? We did bring up part of reading and writing. I do love to write. Maybe someday, possibly may write a book someday. I do love what you're doing currently at the moment, journalism. I have spoke to a lot of great people, but not so great people in my life. And I've asked them questions, mostly on a political scale. Possibly journalism may be one, too. So, especially meeting Wayne Dawson. Even though he's a Shaw graduate, but even still, he's a man on a mission, and he's been on a mission for a very long time. Mr. Wayne Dawson, congrats on your career, and congrats on your successes, and maybe someday I will have the career in journalism.
Wayne is a former classmate of mine. I didn't go to Shaw. I went to Massillon, Washington High School, but Wayne and I were classmates at Kent State University. I was on the 5-year plan. Wayne was on the 4-year plan. We really should have graduated the same year, but I had some incompletes, and I had to come back the next year to finish. So Wayne left Kent State University, came to Cleveland, started working at WJW-TV, which is now Fox 8, and the rest is history. He's been there ever since, and he's actually one of the most fortunate television anchors in the history of this country, because to have a job that long is unprecedented. Even Leon Bibb hasn't done that, and Leon is like the dean of Cleveland broadcasters, but we lived in the same dorm. I wasn't his resident advisor. I think Wayne was on the 8th floor of McDowell Hall. I was on the 7th floor, but we did have classes together. As a matter of fact, when I was a senior at Kent State University, I directed and hosted a show, mostly hosted, it was called The Disco Den. It was my attempt at being Don Cornelius, my hero. The Soul Train still is my favorite show of all time. But I did this dance show, and we had Wayne and Thomas Roper and his then girlfriend, among many, may he rest in peace, Thomas Roper's girlfriend, Sherry, and a number of others that, well, you probably wouldn't know because they're much older than you are. But anyway, it was a great time. It was a great time. We played the songs. As a matter of fact, I think Wayne may have had a cousin or somebody just had the same last name. His name was Zagar. He spelled it S-D-G-A-R, Zagar Dawson. And I remember that there's just certain kind of dance that he used to do, and and Wayne, I have this vivid memory of Wayne at a dance that was at the Student Center, and the song was "Ecstasy" by Barry White. And there was a certain dance that we were doing at that time, and Wayne was killing it. Wayne and I have conversations every once in a while, but that's my man. Matter of fact, when Wayne left Kent State and came back to Cleveland, I was able to secure his radio job because he worked at WKNT in Kent as a reporter. He was covering city council meetings in Stowe and Talmadge. So I had the pleasure of covering some of the most boring meetings you ever want to go to. But hey, it was a job. I got paid, and I left there and moved to Akron and worked in radio in Akron for a season, and then ended up here in Cleveland. Another memory that I have of you, and I knew I was going to bring this up at some point, and I'm sure you remember it vividly. We were on the west side of Cleveland, in a restaurant called the Root Cafe. And there was a certain actress.
Yes, Octavia Spencer.
Yes. And she gave both of us the stiff arm.
It was a very hot day, and I dressed to the T in a suit. Oh man, I was just too impressed. And yeah, she was in town with a local author, and she was interested in doing turning the book into a movie, I believe so. And I think you informed me about Miss Spencer coming to town, and for me, I did not hesitate to go to Lakewood for the meet and greet. And yeah, it was a pretty interesting day of intent.
Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of greeting going on that day.
No, really a whole lot of greeting. There was a long line of people waiting to meet Miss Octavia Spencer, including myself too. I just wanted to admire her for her work and let her know that I was a big fan, especially when the movie The Help came out, which she won an Oscar for. That movie really helped push her career. I believe she did comedic acting before that, but The Help really pushed her career up to that higher ranking.
Well, I'm not going to hate on the sister. She's done some incredible things as an actress and as a producer. So she's got a career. But that day I wasn't feeling her a whole lot. She didn't even want to take a picture. She told me I had to get permission from the publicist. And for some reason that day, I was having issues with my phone. Because, when you're in public sometimes, you just hold the phone up, take the picture. But my phone was not working today. So I walked away from that encounter feeling a little less than good about it. But I guess the high point of it was got to see my man Tawayne, and we did have a good time that day despite that.
Yes, we did have a good time. And even with that, and I've met people beyond Octavia Spencer since that time. And I'm going to say, I do have a little fame on me. I'm going to brag a little bit about this. Besides from being a third-generation elected official, I'm also been featured in the New York Times newspaper. I'm going to say that it has been the proud moment of my life and political career. But even being famous, locally or statewide, it's nice to be important, but it's also important to be nice. Words of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So even I've met people with fame who are complete jerks, and I've met people with fame who are very great. So even with the fame that I do have now, yes, I am human like everyone else. But at the end of the day, I never forget the people who support me, the people who supported me since the very beginning, and also the people who I work for. And it's the people, no matter if I'm elected to the position or not. I work for the people, and I will continue to work for the people until at the time I have no longer interest in public service.
I was going to bring up the fact that you've met so many people. I'm just wondering who stands out amongst the many famous folks that you've encountered.
Oh, wow. I've met a lot of great people from comedians to actors. This is something, but I must say, so far, LeVar Burton, really. I've met Mr. Burton twice in my life. And the first time I met him was back when I was really interested in entertainment. And I asked him, what advice could you give me to maintain positivity, to get in the entertainment industry? And he said, be relentless, Mr. McGee. And with that, even beyond entertainment, even in the politics, I take that advice with me everywhere I go. So LeVar Burton has been that one so far to give me great inspiration.
I just recently saw a photograph of LeVar Burton, and he had on a T-shirt or a jersey or something, and it had the words Toby and Kunta Kinte written on it, and there was a line drawn through Toby. So he was embracing his African ancestry. I thought that was quite profound. Who else can you think of that left an impact on you?
Well, besides from yourself. But
I'm flattered. I know you're a comedian, so.
This comes to still great with honesty. Been knowing this man for a very long time. He's presented me with great opportunities and great energy. So I must say, Mr. Vince Robinson. But I have locally and worldwide. I have been.
Well, I think I might know one.
Okay, well, if you know one, what's up?
Okay, we were at the Phyllis Weekly Association for a political event. I think it was during campaign one season, or campaign season 1 year, and Michael Eric Dyson was there. I know you met him that day.
Yes, I've met Dr. Michael Eric Dyson on numerous accounts, actually. When he has came to Cleveland. I remember when he had spoke at Olivet Missionary Baptist Church right across the street from Caramel, which is a historical church within the city of Cleveland. A lot of people, especially political figures, come to speak there all the time. But meeting Dr. Eric Dyson, he's been an inspiration too. I learned a lot. Some of his stuff I might have some disagreements too, but the way how he presents himself is great, and I've been following his work since then. So. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson was there too. I also met Reverend Al Sharpton. He's been great too. I've met 3 members of the Kennedy family: Joe Kennedy III, Robert Kennedy Jr., and also Carrie Kennedy. So meeting the Kennedys, I never thought I would ever meet a Kennedy in my life, but that's been great too. Wow, So, but life has been great, and I look forward to what else it has to offer.
Yeah, and at the tender age of 26.
Yes.
Oh, to be young again. If I could go back to 26. But I actually interviewed Michael Eric Dyson the day that he spoke at Olivet.
Oh.
It was a great interview.
Okay.
And we talked about Robert Kennedy. Because he wrote a book about him.
All right. Normally with Michael Eric Dyson is always, I think he did one about Jay-Z recently. It is a passion for hip-hop because he's from Detroit. So, Motown comes through a whole lot for Dr. Michael Dyson. I'm stuttering, but saying his name because he's such a great man. But, it's just so many great people to meet, so many great people I've met, and some of them also engaged in the conversation with me. They say it's been nice meeting me. So, to get a compliment from them, that's been great.
Yeah. Well, one thing that you must know about politicians is they know how to be engaging. They have to. If they want to get your vote, they're going to flatter you. That's a lesson you will learn if you haven't learned it yet. But I think you have good skills in that. Young man, I have to tell you, I'm really happy to have been able to spend this time with you and to learn the things about you that I have. I'm very hopeful that you will achieve your aspirations in the field of politics. If it's that, if you decide to write a book, hopefully it will be the book that you want it to be. Write it and either get it published or publish it yourself. but there's no reason that you can't achieve all your goals. Who knows? You might be sitting in front of the next president of the United States at some point. Who knows? Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. Ladies and gentlemen, Brother Tawayne McGee, thanks for joining me on Open Door.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Thank you so much for the invitation.
All right. And thank you for listening and watching Open Door, 95.9 FM WOVU. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day.